forgot my lighter. Oh well.
And,
Yeah, we straight chillin', serial killing, pre-cold villains on the mind, got you reeling. 5-star rated from the floor to the ceiling. If you catch a 1-star, no time for feelings. Got a demon DJ on the ones and twos. By the name Elzebub, so don't get confused. So grab a seat by the fire, roast them all over two. And prepare to hear the legend of the straight chillin' crew.
What up, nerds, and welcome to another PG-13 episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name is Bob. I'll be your host for the evening. This is episode 426, recorded Tuesday, June 6th, 2023. Tonight we're talking about the latest from your boy Rob Savage, the Boogeyman.
Boogeyman! You nail the window shut! I'll get the gun!
Precisely. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got your boy Randeezy. What's up, man?
What's going on, children?
what's up, fellas? I am coming on hot off of irrational anger at technology, so this should be a real good episode for me.
It's probably rational and well-deserved.
I'm not in a place to talk about what's rational or not. Too much red. Too much red in my eyes right now.
Seeing red again.
God damn fucking red. Technology, you son of a bitch.
Those are
Okay.
the original lyrics for the Chevelle song. Goddamn fucking red again.
Seeing goddamn motherfucking red again.
Last but not least, calling in from Seoul, South Korea, we got your boy Soju. What's up, man?
Oh, what up? It's your boy Soju. This movie gave me nothing to work with. Nothing.
Darkness
No,
stained bed
no,
under
we're
the
going
bed stains?
We're going classic. We're going classic today.
Closet stains?
Boogeyman.
Booger. Yeah, but that was
Booger
Bob's
stains?
jokes from last week. That was a good one.
The Booger Man stains.
I think it's pronounced Booger Mang though. So let's
Booger
go ahead
Mang.
and get that.
Frankenstein, the Boogeyman.
Well,
Dude,
yeah, I
that's
guess
getting
we
me
beg to
like
differ.
stoked for Halloween season though. So we need to calm that down.
If
a little
Simpsons
bit.
just purely becomes a Halloween thing for you, I think you have an
Dude,
issue.
that is a tree house. That's like one of the best tree house episodes.
I'm just saying, it's just all Simpsons, man.
nope. Halloween
Only
specific.
during Halloween. Well, yeah, let's tackle a little bit of housekeeping real quick there, gentlemen's. We do have our July poll currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this July. This is Randy's Takeover Month. What are we debating on this month, Randy?
Well, this month we're going to do just some straightforward animated horror. And we're going to do 3 different kinds of animation represented here. We have stop motion with The House, the Netflix anthology film. Anime with Paprika, which I know very little about, but has come highly recommended. And then for strict 2D animation, sort of old school, we have Watership Down, which I also have not seen, but I know a little bit about reputationally. So I'm excited. You know how I love animation. So
Nice.
you guys pick your favorite.
Bob, how those numbers looking in the first week of June?
Paprika is certainly the favorite.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Okay.
The other,
Highly recommended.
yeah, the other two are not really anywhere close currently. Still plenty of votes left out there, though.
All right. Nice competitive poll this month.
Yeah.
You know, we had some real close ones recently. It's
Yeah.
about time for a
Yeah.
dead ringer to come out, I guess.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Gotta get
all
back
right.
Uh,
to basics here.
Yeah, get those votes in before the end of June. We'll see what we're talking about this July. In other Patreon news, this coming Friday, we're going to be dropping another mini cast on Patreon. If you support us at the $10 level or above, you get access to a whole back catalog of Patreon exclusive episodes. This is episode number 99 dropping this Friday.
Damn, dude.
That means I get $100. Hell
You
yeah.
do. You do.
I'm gonna sneak one in there.
Real quick.
Brandy's gonna go, I'm gonna change the passwords real quick.
This episode's about
no.
Elm Street. You guys want to talk about Elm Street?
I'm changing it right now on my phone.
This Friday, I'm dropping a mini cast on a movie called Malum. This was a new release. It's on VOD everywhere. It is basically a remake of a movie that came out about 10 years ago called The Last Shift.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
Same director.
I knew there was a remake. I didn't know it was called something different, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Same director. He basically got a bigger budget and was allowed to remake his own movie. So he did.
Whoa, pulling a
That's a-
fucking Sam Raimi over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
pretty
that's
much.
very true. Except, I mean, well, I don't know. He's not calling it,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Last
Shift
Shift
2.
Yeah. And
Last
it's
Shift
not,
2.
it's not
Army
a
of Last
slapstick-
Shifts.
It's not a slapstick comedy either. It's still a straight ahead horror movie.
You think?
Yeah. Slam that into your ear holes. See what I thought about Malum this Friday. And yeah, episode a mini cast 100. It's going to be dropping Friday, June 23rd. Soju's going to be talking about the Pope's Exorcist.
Damn, I wish I would known. Maybe I would pick something different, but
You switch it, record something else and switch it out. That's fine.
I record right now. Oh God, maybe I
Cancel
will.
this show.
Maybe I will.
Maybe. Maybe. So yeah, that's what we got going on with the mini casts. In other Patreon news, we're going to be reopening the You Pick the Flick tier
Okay.
on Sunday, June 25th.
Whoa.
Mark your calendars. Yes.
Get your moment of glory, people. It's time to force us to watch your favorite shit.
This is news to me. I wasn't aware this was coming up.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were. Yeah, so if you're a newer listener, this is the only way for you to outright pick a movie for us to review on the show. We open this tier up on Patreon quarterly, and there's only 5 spots per quarter. They typically go very quickly. Like I said, we're opening it up on Sunday, June 25th, and it's going to open at an undisclosed time of day. So you just have to refresh your browser, check our Patreon website, see if the tier's up there.
Dumb son of a bitch. You don't watch it 24 hours a day.
Yes, you do. See if the tier's open. Grab you a spot if you can. And also, I don't think we said this in a while. We're limiting it to 2 spots per person per year. I don't think anybody's gotten 2 spots yet, though, so it shouldn't really matter.
Okay.
Nice. We're gonna like a nice array here, people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Competitive enough. Get your second spot.
Mm-hmm.
Grab it. Yeah. June 25th. Mark your calendars.
Nice.
I got a couple other things, but nothing Patreon related. Do you guys have anything you want to? I've been chatting for a while. Juice, you got any YouTube stuff?
Yeah, my house is filthy. I got a couple things. So just one more shout out to Seth over at Bean Dad Podcast. If you would like an extra bonus movie review, we do Creature Comforts once a month where we talk about horror adjacent properties. We just covered Enemy from 2013. So you can check that out on that's a YouTube exclusive though. Also, I have an event coming up in Seoul that we're going to be doing in partnership with the Dark Side of Seoul called the Summer Chills. Summer Chills, and it's going to be July. Yeah, it's going to be Saturday, July 22nd. And we're going to be doing some screenings. That's going to be starting at 7 p.m. and that's going to be at the DCC Cafe, formerly the Dice Latte, here in Seoul. There's going to be some, food and drink specials, and we're going to be hanging out, just watching some horror movies and hanging out with some horror fans and everything. Me and Sean are going to be there for sure. So yeah, come hang out with us in Seoul and check that out. And then I know. So that's exciting. And then also, so I released a brand new little editorial this past week with a website called Certified Forgotten, and it is a kind of deep dive into The Wailing, which is a Korean film from 2016. And so yeah, if you're interested in something like that, we have a link up and you can check it out, certifiedforgotten.com.
Can't believe your first publication that you're going to be put into is going to be not about hunting cooters. You're really letting the people down here. We need to use our platform for good.
I should have
Okay.
wrote about the hunt.
The hunt
Publish
never
that handbook.
stops.
Yeah. So but yeah, that's up. Try to get a couple more of those in eventually. But yeah, I think that's my full house cleaning.
Yeah, I
Okay,
don't think I
Rick,
have much myself. Yeah,
No?
you good,
Yeah.
Bob?
I got
Rob
a
still
couple-
got some
a
stuff.
couple
Okay, you
things
still
real
got
quick.
some stuff. Let's go. then.
Yeah, so at the time of you listening to this episode, we will have just released a new commentary over at Let's Get Physical Media. Mikey and myself and a couple of our cohorts sat down and recorded the commentary for It Follows.
Nice.
And you can check that out anywhere you get your podcast. Just search Let's Get Physical Media. It was a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. And finally,
I'm sure Mikey was a perfect gentleman the whole time.
probably you'll have to.
It's
listen to
about a
find out.
monster that fucks you to death. So I doubt.
Yeah.
It's-
Mikey's in his element.
how blue could it get? Let's be honest.
Dabba dee dabba die.
Finally, I was a guest over on Waxing the Porpoise, and we did a movie review. We were talking about a movie called Clay Pigeons, and that's going to be dropping on Thursday. So at the time you're listening to this, just one more day.
All
I
right.
always heard about that movie, or I've heard it mentioned a lot.
I don't
I
know
don't know.
anything about it.
It was
General
new to me.
positive feeling?
Oh yeah.
Or
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, generally positive. It's like a dark comedy from the 90s with Joaquin Phoenix in it.
Mm.
Vince Vaughn, Janine Garofalo. I didn't know anything about it, man, but it's
Huh.
banger of a cast.
That's what G Baby did with me when we watched Enemies. I didn't know anything about Enemies when I
Yeah.
covered on his. He's getting those gems.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
guys.
hidden gems.
He's bringing those to the table and really showing us the fuck up.
Yeah.
Look
Don't
at these
show me up,
gems.
G Baby. You're
I know
embarrassed.
every movie.
I've seen them all.
I've seen them all.
Yeah.
all the good ones. This must be shit because I've never heard of it.
Must be dog shit.
I give it 0 stars because I've never seen it before. It's fucking terrible. So yeah, check out Waxing the Purpose anywhere you get your podcasts.
Nice.
That's it. House is clean.
Bob, let me
Hell
ask
yeah.
you this
Ooh.
before we drop the bump. Was there any Malort involved in that recording?
Dude, Jim started the show with a brand new full ass bottle of Malort,
Uh-huh.
and you'll just have to listen to find out how much was left by the time we wrap
All right.
recording.
All right.
That concerns me on a number of levels.
Try
The
to
man
hype up,
he's impressive.
try to hype this episode up a bit.
Yeah.
One bottle is enough for any man for his life. So I think that once you finish a bottle, like an ancient curse comes over and drags you to hell. So he better be careful with those last few sips.
Yeah. Jim got his porpoise waxed.
All right.
This house is clean.
All right, let's get into the main event. We're talking the Boogeyman, and we're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
Bob, did you pre-order this box?
You cannot pre-order it yet, but I did. I made my own box here.
Yeah, you did.
So I'm ready to go.
You're ready to get
Oh
it.
wow.
Just
This
need
is
the
a bit
disc.
just for the YouTube
Boogeyman,
reviews
behind the
apiece.
scenes.
It's Stefan Kang's The Boogeyman, and it's the Super Savage edition. If you see here,
Oh damn, Bob. If you
'Cause
can
your
make it,
boy,
eventually you'll have your own little blue boutique, and we'll go back to this day and say,
Boutique.
remember when Bob was making his
boutique.
own the old boutique.
By then we'll just be like shoving movies directly into our eye sockets or some shit. So through a syringe.
Cronenberg would fucking love that, wouldn't
Well, it's
He'd
not
be
sexual enough.
jerking
It would
off
be in the
to it.
asshole.
he? Yeah, yeah.
That's super
All movies
violent.
are now
That's making me sick.
suppositories.
I
That's
never
how I knew
knew.
Cronenberg.
I never knew just how physical media could get. Yeah, fuck yeah.
I don't think it'll be any
Um,
coincidence when the lead character's name is Bob. I'm just saying.
Yeah, so we're talking about Stefan Kang's The Boogeyman from 2023 is a brand new release, rated PG-13, runtime of 1 hour and 38 minutes, directed by Rob Savage. This was written by Scott Beck, Brian Woods, and Mark Heyman. They're probably best known for writing the Quiet Place movies. They wrote some other stuff too. I'm kind of blanking on it.
That's
65. I think they just wrote 65 as well.
65. Sorry.
This stars Sophie Thatcher, Chris Messina, Vivian Lyre Blair, David Dastmalchian, host of other folks. Plot synopsis brought to you by IMDb is as follows. Still reeling from the tragic death of their mother, a teenage girl and her younger sister find themselves plagued by a sadistic presence in their house and struggle to get their grieving father to pay attention before it's too late. First time watch for all of us. Gentlemen, would you recommend people check out The Boogeyman? Randeezy, why don't you kick us off? Damn.
Trying to think of a subset of the population that this would be a benefit for. It's I wouldn't really recommend it firmly to anybody I can think of. Maybe if you're not allowed R-rated films, this is a pretty good starter film in the PG-13 realm, I suppose. You've seen a lot. I haven't seen. Huh? Yeah. Well, it's not G-rated, so no. Yeah, no, I don't have a firm recommendation for this movie. No.
Okay, Juice. What about you?
No, I would definitely firmly say this is not a theater watch. You know, this has streaming written all over it. You know, this is when you kind of throw on if you can get.
Does that mean you think it's piss?
Streaming. It's a thick streamer.
Like nothing I'd ever smelled before in my life.
Damn.
Chunky.
Hydrate. God damn.
But no, yeah, this is just kind of like an amalgamation of a bunch of other horror movies and tropes kind of thrown together. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's not, I wouldn't risk like going to the movie theater to see it. It's not worth getting potentially shot over. So no.
You know, there's a 1 in 3 chance you'll be shot in The Boogeyman.
So don't see it. So no, not particularly.
Folks whacked his child.
They whacked me, Bob. How about you? Would you recommend people check out The Boogeyman?
I give it a light recommend. I think this movie, I think it's a good PG-13 movie, but it's definitely like if you're like a big horror head, you've seen a lot of stuff. This is just not really going to blow your hair back. But I think it's a good starter movie. So if there's any younger people listening to us, I definitely would recommend it. Yeah, go check it out. Otherwise, yeah, just wait for it to hit streaming. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be on Hulu before too long. Just throw it on or whatever. Yeah. So that doesn't really sound like a recommendation across the board from the Straight Chilling Crew.
Yeah, and there's no younger people listening to us, Bob. Come on,
let's hope not.
There's definitely some, but that's not our primary demographic, as we.
That's not my fucking problem. Go to bed.
Damn. Grow up. In due time.
We're too mature for the younger.
Watch the Boogeyman. Oh yeah,
clearly.
Yeah. The Boogeyman isn't too scary, so don't bother.
We're hunting for dick.
Damn. Yes, we are. So yeah, not much of a recommendation here from the Straight Chilling Crew. But we are going to spoil the shit out of this movie, and here comes your warning.
Spoiler warning.
Bob, hit me with that plot synopsis because I already forgot half the bullet points.
I got it for you right here.
All right.
So the Harper family, sisters Sadie and Sawyer, and their therapist father Will, are struggling to come to terms with the recent death of their mother, who died suddenly in a car crash. Will is visited by a man called Lester Billings, who seeks therapy. He explains his 3 children have died. They were all killed one by an entity he now thinks is latched onto him. Will leaves him alone to go call the police, thinking that he murdered his children, and Lester slips away into the house. Sadie ends up finding his body hanging dead in her mother's closet. A strange mold starts to grow in the house, and Sawyer sees a creature under the bed. The girls visit their therapist, where Sawyer sees the entity once again. Strange occurrences in the house lead Sadie to start believing her sister. She suspects it's related to Lester Billings. Sadie listens to Lester's therapy session that was recorded by her father, and she ends up finding his address. She visits his house and meets his wife, who claims the creature she's seeing is the Boogeyman, and that the Boogeyman killed her children. She also explains the creature likes scaring its victims because it feeds off fear, and the only way to combat the creature is with light. Sadie has friends over one night to the house, just hang out with some lady friends. They end up locking her in the closet as a joke, the same one that Lester hung himself in. She sees the Boogeyman again. When she finally gets out of the closet, she slaps the girl in the face that locked her in there. Sawyer.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, Sawyer has been thrown into the TV by the Boogeyman and ends up being hospitalized. Sadie is contacted by Rita, Lester's wife, who says she knows how to beat the Boogeyman. Sadie goes back to her house, and Rita cuffs her to a pipe in front of a closet. She's also rigged a bunch of shotgun blasts to tripwires in the room. She turns off the lights and uses Sadie as bait. The Boogeyman emerges from the closet and gets shot several times. It appears to be dead, but springs back to life, killing Rita. Sadie escapes, and her father calls her. Over the phone, she hears him and her sister get attacked by the Boogeyman, so she runs home. Sadie is hiding and wrapped up in Christmas lights, and says that their father was taken down to the basement by the Boogeyman. They find their father, and a chase ensues. They manage to set the creature on fire, seemingly with the help of their mother's spirit. Later, we find the girls getting picked up by their father from their therapist. Sadie hears the therapist call her back in the office, but she finds nobody when she enters. But the closet door is slightly ajar. Her therapist walks in behind her and asks what she's doing. She says nothing and calmly closes the closet
I don't
door.
want to alarm you, but there may be a boogeyman or boogeymen in the house.
There may be. Roll them credits. That's it.
Woo.
Hey, Boogeyman.
So
Boogeyman.
So this movie reminded me of another movie that came out last year, and it's kind of got me a little concerned about a potential trend we might be seeing. So
Trend watch.
I know. So it kind of reminded me of Smile, and that was another movie that just like I watched it and it was very medium to me, but the biggest problem I had with it was it felt like so many other movies, like just pieces of much better movies. And this one felt the exact same way. Like even as Bob was reading the plot synopsis, I already had like in my mind things that this was like I could reference towards, but like I was picking out a couple more. Like getting locked in the closet, I was like, oh, Sixth Sense, like just kind of picked that one up that I didn't think about before and stuff. And it's just like these generic ass kind of movies that are just makes me want to wish I was watching like 10 other better movies. I don't know. What did y'all think of that?
This movie reminded me quite a lot of a movie called Lights Out. Came out a few years ago.
Yeah.
It plays with similar tropes, and if I remember correctly, that was also kind of a metaphor for dealing with grief, personal grief for losing someone close to you. But I don't know, like this movie is called The Boogeyman, which is like the most generic, like there's a monster in a closet, there's a monster in like the source material of it is pretty damn generic. So like I know you want them to like jazz it up a little bit and do some new stuff, but it's like I feel like the baseline is like the genericness is like baked into the source material, and like how fancy do you want them to get with the Boogeyman? Like it's a lot, it's a tightrope to toe, but
that's exactly right. I was going to say the same thing. Like on one hand, I kind of admire anybody who's willing to go out on that ledge because a couple things, like you said, like, it's a very generic like formula. Which there's a new Boogeyman movie like every 4 years or something like that that comes out, and most of them are not theatrical releases at all. This one probably shouldn't have been. I kind of agree with Justin on that. It's just like I kind of respect trying to make something called the Boogeyman seem intimidating. Like we all know what's actually scary about the Boogeyman, but the name is really hard for me to get past. I even as a child, I was not going to tell. I was like, Boogeyman, that's fucking stupid. Why would I like? But I would get scared just like any kid. But if I called it the Boogeyman, I wouldn't be scared anymore. I'd be cringing at myself. I don't know. It's a tough thing to try and make that scary. And unfortunately for this movie, the way that it tries to approach that is by showing a lot of the boogeyman. And the
Yeah.
boogeyman is a CG mess. It's very, very, for the most part, very, very generic seeming and doesn't like seem real in any capacity, like not in the way that you want either. It does. I thought back to the Babadook, which I think this movie runs a long lineage of that, out of that trend. Like I think this is kind of the tail end of that. This is the PG-13ification of the Babadook in some ways, and those kinds of films that are like, oh, this is all a metaphor for grief or for dealing or for loss or for whatever. And so this movie kind of does that, but like the way that they personify this thing, it's so slapshod by comparison. The implication of the presence of the Babadook in the form of like a coat in the corner of the frame is so much scarier than like 99% of anything that happens in this movie. Am I wrong
Well,
about that?
Well, no, you're right. And that's the thing too, with Smile coming out last year, it's like they actually made it a creature, which another reference like was, you could say, which Bob mentioned, It Follows, where they do a similar kind of thing where it's just a random type of person who looks fucked up generally, but like walking towards you. That's so much more effective than this generic ass CG monster that reminded me of, I was going through some things, even when Bob said, oh yeah, they wrote A Quiet Place, I was like, it kind of reminds me a little bit, like some of the movements and like the limbs and stuff of A Quiet Place creature. I was also thinking too, it's kind of face, like when it does Under the Bed and shit. Y'all remember District 9, those like aliens from District 9? It kind of made me think of those things.
Dude, that's the thing, is like the appearance of the creature. You get a good hard look at this thing, as much as they pretend like they're concealing it. You see it. You see it several times, even from the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And so like it's following like the Slender Man trend. It's the really long, lanky, fucked up looking creature guy who is humanoid, but just is really lanky and like kind of spidery a little bit.
Yeah.
He looks like the Crooked Man. He looks like Slender Man.
I didn't hate the creature design, honestly. It's most specifically towards the end, where like you see the hands, the arms coming out of the mouth. Like I thought that was
cool.
pretty
Yeah, no, I agree.
That was cool. Yeah,
and
that was
like,
cool. But like sorry, go ahead, Bob.
Outside of that, I do think it works best when you just see what you think is its eyes in like a pitch black corner of the room, but you're not really sure. Are it its eyes?
Yeah, like the cat eyes is a great effect.
Yeah,
and they could have rode that a lot harder, I think, and it would have maybe been repetitive, but it would have been better than what we got, which is just like too much. Like this is the visual version of too much exposition. We've seen too much of Jaws at this point, and that can be fine. Like we look back at Smile, and I didn't love that movie by any means, but I at least thought like the creature thing was kind of interesting. Like I don't know, there was something about it that I actually thought was like kind of grimy and interesting looking. But it was also kind of CG'd. It wasn't this bad of CG. The CG that's in this is worse, and it looks like, I don't know, it looks like the fucking, like texturally like the bug at the end of Men in Black. Like that's it's very, very bad in my opinion.
I didn't think it was that bad. Maybe I'm just more forgiving in general.
Well, maybe, but like I think that with really good CG it could have worked, with seeing less of it could have worked, and certainly with like the right puppetry or whatever, like it could have worked. It's not really like whoever sketched it out, I have no problem with what they did, really. It's a little bit of a trend to have these lanky, spidery things, like I mentioned, but it can be pulled off. I just don't think it was at all. Like it just, the way that they executed it was very rote and basic seeming to people who have seen these kinds of movies before, which I kind of understand. This movie is a PG-13 movie. I think it was intended for a crowd that maybe isn't as exposed to these movies.
Yeah.
But even the movies that those kids are exposed to are things like Slender Man and shit, where they are kind of exposed to this kind of monster specifically.
Well, that's the thing too. Even when I had positives about this film, I couldn't almost go through any scene without, and this is a little bit of my condition of like having seen so many films, but I couldn't, anytime I was like, oh, that's a positive aspect, I was like, oh, I feel like that's just from something else. So this kind of sound design, or the ideas of the monster too, oh, it can use somebody else's voice or something like that, and it's got kind of like this echoey sound. It reminded me of like the bear from Annihilation, and I was like, oh, well, that's a much better movie, and that's a much better concept pulled about. Like anytime there was something positive, like I like the moon, you know, that they use the moonlight.
Yeah.
She rolls it under the bed. But even in that, I would say, don't they do that exact same thing? And like, you know, the rolling of the ball, that's from, you know, The Shining or even The Conjuring 2 or something. I mean, it's just
Changeling.
Changeling, yeah.
any beat that happens in this movie, even if it's got a slight positive or even a slight negative, it's just like, that's from another film. That's from another film. It feels completely piecemeal, and like there's almost no original aspect to this movie at all. I can't pick out one.
I there's a few things that stand out to me that I don't know, maybe you have something in mind, but I thought the use of the light cube in the therapist's office was a really cool set piece, and it felt original enough to me.
It's got that we've seen
also,
movies where there's shutters, lights. I mean, but yeah, the color of it. Yeah, I mean, it was. Yeah.
Lights
yeah.
on, lights off, lights on, lights off. That is the movie lights.
Yeah.
To me,
And-
like I understand to some extent what you're saying, Juice, because it's like it's a derivative movie overall, and that's the thing is like there are ways to succeed. Like every movie's built on other movies, like basically, like every movie has
like
influences,
every piece.
But yeah,
But
exactly.
Bob, well,
none of it seems to amount to more. And I think I interrupted you, Bob. But like,
yeah, Bob. I was
gonna
gonna say Bob had some more pieces that might be original.
The set piece where the little girl's playing like her video games and she's using like the flash of the TV when she triggers her weapon to like light the room up. That felt original to me too.
That scene where she hits the TV too is like probably one of the best.
It felt like scary because you're like, oh shit, this creature's like throwing kids around.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, the movie opens up with this thing killing an infant in its crib. That's how it happens off screen, but like
that's true. Yeah.
Damn,
but
you
it
know,
just doesn't feel.
That should have heightened everything, and I think it started to, but it like for whatever reason, I think it because it fell into a very familiar pattern that you, me, the three of us have got to be pretty familiar with, which is grieving post-death child or family member or husband or wife or whatever.
Yeah.
Like we just fell into a very, very familiar pattern immediately after the one sort of like interesting thing about the intro or about the first few minutes. And it just, you know, it didn't really break out of that rut for a while. It took a few and when it started actually trying to be scary, it was in different ruts where it was like Lights Out or like, you know, a few other movies. So like, I don't know. It just, I feel like this movie was blunt and it was kind of blunt in its storytelling. I mean, but it also wasn't like, I think again, like all these things are not things that is a death sentence for a movie necessarily. The movies have blunt points sometimes, but it just doesn't execute any of them particularly well. Maybe it spreads itself too thin or something. I'm not really even sure what the problem is besides it just doesn't hang together well.
Yeah.
It definitely it plays on like, you know, this family processing its own grief for losing its mother, but they're doing it all very separately, and which is they're like not communicating. Like they're trying to tell their father there's this thing in the house, and he's not like listening to them. He doesn't believe them. He sends them to the therapist, and he won't talk about his feelings on the subject whatsoever, like at all, to his kids. Like they're just not. There's this like communication breakdown, which is like, I don't know, a somewhat fresh aspect to like movies like this where we're like really tackling grief, but at the same time, like the parents just don't listen to their kids, like feels pretty fucking rote too. So
it does. And there were too many situations like that where it really felt like it didn't feel like a natural thing that was happening. I mean, I can accept that it's happening, but also too, any motivation that any character is kind of going through feels like it's to move the plot along, not because that's what the character would do. So for instance, when the dad is literally in the girl's room and she says to him, you know, tell me how you feel, you know, like there's at that point, it's hard to just move past and just like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. You know, if you skirt it around that, okay, you know, it's easier to swallow, I guess. But for like a teenage girl to literally be saying to her dad's face, tell me about your emotions and how you feel, and for then that trope of I'm not going to talk about my feelings to still carry the weight of the movie, it just feels,
Especially when the dad
Wow.
is a fucking therapist. Like,
yeah.
he knows.
You should know.
Like,
yeah.
he knows what
Yeah.
he's doing to his kids. He doesn't even have to be told this. He knows exactly what's happening, and he like completely pushes that to the other person or whatever. And I don't know. It's very, it just feels very blunt and very like unsharp. There's nothing to that we haven't seen before and haven't seen done better. So what does it ultimately amount to? And the thing is, like, it doesn't give you any wiggle room. There's nothing to interpret really in this movie. It's very straightforward about what it is. So like, if it had given you something to chew on about, like, oh, like in Babadook, there was something to chew on and wondering like how much of that was in her head, which I think most people kind of come around to the idea that it's in her head. But like, how much of that is, you know, a parent going mad? And maybe if they had included something where we don't trust the dad as or something, that's still derivative, but at least that gives us something where it's like we can go back and look at the film through a couple different lenses. If you're going to try and go, I just feel like if you're going to try and go the route of a very metaphorical monster, you should give it enough wiggle room to where people can kind of approach it a couple different ways. The only thing that I would say in defense of the movie because of that is, in defense of that for the movie's sake, is that I really think this is just a movie meant for the audience of like preteens and 13-year-olds and so on. So like, to a certain extent, I can kind of forgive it. It's like, if I listen to the directors say, yeah, our number one goal in this movie was to make something that was scary enough for a preteen or a tween or an early teenager, to really make them feel like they got their money's worth, but you know, to make it accessible to them specifically and to cater directly to them, I would be a little bit more. I would listen to that logic and be okay with it. I think for the most part, it's not great for me, but also we've seen a billion movies. We've been around for over 30 fucking years, so.
I think that's the thing about it, though, is one like key aspect of that I kept kind of going back to, and it allowed me to give this less credit, is the director, because this is the director's third film now. And when I don't think that now that we're seeing kind of a clear picture of what this guy is kind of capable of, I think him as a director is limited, because you look back, he blew up with Host, which was a 50-minute like clever concept that wasn't anything like spectacular from a director's standpoint, other than it was clever and it came out at kind of like seemingly the perfect time. Then Dashcam came out, and whoa. and now this
Divisive.
and now this film, and I really like seeing this film made me like kind of cement in my mind, okay, this guy kind of got lucky with that first one. Like, I really think it was super short. It came out at the perfect time, and it was more just about the clever premise that he was able to capitalize on versus anything that he's like capable of doing as a creative. And now here we are, and I think this is the limit of this guy's ability. Honestly,
I don't think
he
this
can
movie is
grow,
poorly directed at all, man. I think it's actually pretty well directed. He did not write it, to be fair. Like, it was a script.
I know it's based on a story, but I think it's severely limited in like kind of what Rain. There's nothing that is left for any type of interpretation.
That's fine. Like,
Okay,
why is it,
I think this is a severely limited film, and I think it reflects him as a director.
Yeah, I mean, it is very straightforward, but the movie's called The fucking Boogeyman too. Like, I don't know, like it is like it's a very obvious metaphor for this family's grief, but it's also literally just a monster movie. Like, I don't think anybody's watching this thinking, oh, this is all just in their heads collectively. Whereas Babadook, there's definitely debate to be had there. I don't think there's an issue with this just being a straight ahead monster movie. I give it more grace because it is PG-13. I don't think it's geared towards people like us. We're not the primary audience. But as far as like the directing of this movie specifically, I think it had some like really decent set pieces. I think the monster had like a good design. I thought the cast was good. I thought these kids were great actors. I mean, like, I don't have much negative to say in the way of the direction of the movie. I honestly like. I think Dashcam was a piece of shit, and I've talked at length about that. But this movie, I think, is much better. To be honest.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely
I mean-
much better.
Yeah, the characters
I
are
mean,
less
that's for damn sure.
like
Yeah.
less hateable. No, I think that like there's some value to both of what you guys are saying, because like the thing is, like, I think this director's got a chance to grow. I think he's improved since his last outing. Like, we all agree on that, I think. But like, and I also think that like his, on a technical level, he's doing an okay job in all of these movies. On a purely technical level, I think that he does a decent job. I think that this is his first movie that isn't like point of view, or isn't
Yeah, this is the first
found
movie that
footagey.
had like a budget for.
budget
like,
for
Right.
which he
And,
had
like,
a pretty big budget, to be fair.
It was 20 million from what I saw.
Oh, really? I thought it
But
was
even-
more than that. Okay.
No.
But even the other films like that he's made, even the one that I personally also hate very much, Dashcam, like, he keeps things in frame, he blocks it out. I understood for the most part the beats of the story. I just think that this is very, very derivative in a way that's not fun for me to watch. I think that if that's fine if you are entering the realm of horror at an age where you want something, like I said, like scary but not inaccessible to you, not too heady.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It can just be a monster movie, but I don't think that the monster is very scary. I think that all the scariest parts we've seen done better. And as much as I think it's a capably made movie, I don't think it's a very engaging movie.
Yeah.
Not for us. Yeah. I mean,
I would
I
just
agree.
even okay. So if I was gonna recommend, I think it's so the thing is, okay, when the girl's pulling the tooth out of her throat, I'm just
Yeah.
thinking like, okay, you're watching a PG-13 movie. Go watch The Ring, where this exact element was done. I mean, I
Yeah.
just can't help but see a million some PG-13 movies in this movie that are infinitely better than this film.
Yeah, there are better movies.
Go watch if you want
Yeah.
a monster movie. Go watch this PG-13. Go watch A Quiet Place. If you want one that's built on suspense and something coming to get you, go watch The fucking Ring. I mean, like, if you want a ghosty kind of movie where things are lurking in the dark, go watch The Sixth Sense. I mean, like, I would recommend 10 to 15 to signs Randy brought up earlier, 10 to 15 to 20 movies that you could still lump in as PG-13 that are way, 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 way better than this film, that this film
they
just
contain
cribs
elements
off
that-
of.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like you're kind of forced to compare those things to a certain extent. I think like it's, at least as people who have seen them, and again, that's the grace I give this movie, is like I can't fault it for shooting for a specific audience that is not aware of those things. I can only fault it for cribbing so hard that it doesn't, and not really innovating at all. I think
Yeah.
that this movie kind of feels like a very expensive exercise in directing a multi-camera non-found footage movie for a director who hasn't done a feature of that length, or a feature of that kind, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know, like, it's very mid, and I feel like not everybody gets the chance to do this scale of movie, but at the same time, I've seen directors pull themselves out of bigger holes than this. So like, I don't want to like completely write off the man's career just off of this movie now.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
I
not
think that, like, one of the things
writing
that-
him off. It's kind of just like getting a clear picture of. I think that I would say
He's
that
got a
this guy's
glass
kind of
ceiling
like
to break
limited to this. Like, I don't necessarily think that if he came out with something that was worthwhile, like, okay, even going back to Host, I'm thinking back and saying like, okay, like that was just a clever premise that he was able to capitalize on. There's nothing particularly in that film that makes me go like, ooh, wow, that's like so
Well,
innovative.
He
or anything.
also made it in his house with no money. You know, like, considering that, I think he did a pretty fucking good job on Host.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that was, again,
and
technically
that was
impressive.
The thing is, that was the thing. It's like, it was like, I think seeing this movie, like we said, this is the first time where he's not using the found footage aspect of it, and I think that he's just kind of, like, I think he's limited. I don't think he's gonna burst past this. And not to say that this is like, if he were able to make a career out of making these types of film, you know what, then live your life, build your career, that's fine. But I'm like, I wouldn't I haven't seen anything from this guy where I would expect anything innovative or worthwhile, I guess I would say.
I
Here's
mean,
the thing. Go ahead,
I think in the case of this movie, I think he was simply limited by the script he had to work off of. Like, based on what happened in this movie, I think it was portrayed pretty well. Like, if he got a little more money and a better script, I don't see any reason why he couldn't churn out a better movie or an R-rated movie, you know, that might actually appeal to us a little bit more in the future. I don't see like why that would be.
I mean,
I'd be willing
you
to
could
give it. I'm not
simply,
saying,
you could simply show less of the monster. Just even the basic idea of like show it less is more. That would infinitely improve, and that's a choice.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think the monster was bad. I thought it was fine.
I mean, like we say, it's generic.
It didn't do it for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Quiet Place. It's District 9. Again, you take any scene, any aspect of this movie, and you just get 10 other better movies, in my opinion. So like I could do it with almost any aspect, like, and that's the conclusion I'm going to come back to, and I can like rattle them off every time. And so when you say like, oh, I thought the monster was pretty good, it's like in comparison to what? Because I agree with Randy. Like it didn't. It's
just
okay.
this movie. Taking this movie as it is.
It's okay, but I mean, it's nothing special. It's nothing innovative. He should have shown less. I don't think like he made like it's the most amazing monster I've ever seen. I don't think it has any particular unique aspects.
I don't think anybody's arguing that it is at all.
It's
fine. It's just fine.
Yeah, I think that's my point. It's like that's the best it's ever gonna be. It's fine.
I mean, the best this movie is ever going to be, sure.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like I don't want to extend it to the future because like this is his first film that's got this budget that isn't found footage. We've all stumbled over that now. It's not found footage. I think there's an argument to be had that this is cutting teeth still in a larger pool of money and opportunity, and I think that's fine. What I would argue is that even with what I agree with Justin on is that even with the given pieces, like given script, the given all that stuff, I don't think he maximizes the potential of this thing. And I think that that's why it doesn't feel good to watch. Like, for instance, let's talk about like acting. We've got David Dastmalchian, who does a good job, but he's only in it for a few minutes. You've got Chris Messina, who does okay. You've got Sophie Thatcher, who I've been recently binging Yellow Jackets, and she is fucking great in that. Like, she's able to do a pretty complex acting job. And I don't think that she's given enough to work with here, neither in script nor in direction, to really... I really don't feel connected to her in this movie, and it's a bummer because like she's a grieving child. It should be an extremely easy layup for me to I sympathize with her, but I don't really get into her head at all. I don't feel like I'm in her head, and I think that's something that comes at least in part from directing, not just the writing. You know what I mean? You can do other things to push that forward. I don't think that there's any character in this movie that really feels like more than a stock character, and that is partially the writing, that is partially the story, but it is more than that too. The director has control over it.
Yeah, I do agree with that criticism. I think more than anybody in this movie, like the little girl is the one that like I am able to like relate to the most, because we've all been a child scared of something in the closet or under your bed or in the dark or whatever. We've all been there. It's easy to relate to. It's like the most baseline fear ever, which is kind of like what this movie is going for, which I know is not like an excuse necessarily, but I can at least understand it. And I thought the little girl did a good job too. Like,
I just think this movie aspires to more than what ultimately it pans out. I think I think he really does try, and like I think he does try. Like I think there is an attempt to really make these things resonate, and it falls flat, which is almost worse than something that like is just kind of on its face, like A Quiet Place or whatever. I don't consider those movies terribly deep. You know what I mean?
No.
They're also pretty blunt. I don't particularly love those movies, but I do feel like the actors put something on the table for me. I feel like some of the monster set pieces have a little innovativeness to them. You know what I mean? Like I think that there's opportunity that wasn't optimized in this movie is really what it comes down to, and it ultimately fell flat. I won't say it's bad. I don't think it's technically bad. I think all the elements are there. It's just doesn't fucking fit together somehow.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of similarities for sure. I mean, they're written by the same crew.
Yeah.
The thing that really sticks out of my mind is the end of A Quiet Place. I guess I won't spoil it, but there's like a certain device that comes into play that helps them defeat the monsters. That's like the key.
Yeah.
And similar to like the lighter in this movie, which is sort of like hinted at all throughout the movie, that the lighter comes into play. And it's like their mom's lighter, and it seems to be out of fluid and then like magically ignites one final time, which is like, I don't know, it's a little corny, but also like, the spirit of their mother's in the house, you're led to believe anyways, and like helps them out in the end. It's like, it is very similar. It's just A Quiet Place is a little more interesting.
Yeah.
For sure.
And
but-
also like in terms of like you and I, Bob, I don't like, this isn't widely released yet, but that Talk to Me film, like
yeah,
that's also about grieving the loss of a parent. That's also got true life supernatural quote unquote monsters things happening to it, and they just accomplish so much more with it. Like just the simple innovation of like what the object is that movie centers around. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just gonna repeat myself.
Yeah,
so
well,
just-
that's the
Yeah.
thing. I mean, that's what's hard too, because like if you, I really do think it does come down to this director in some aspects, and in some it doesn't. You're right, Boogeyman. It's a Stephen King property and those things like that, but like. A Quiet Place could have easily been this level type of film. It could have been easily, and it's not. And it's infinitely better in my opinion. And I can always keep coming back to this movie is fine, but if you sat down with this guy, I seriously doubt that this man would say, yeah, I sought to make the most mediocre film possible.
That's the thing.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, where are your elements? So if I sit down and say, what did you bring to the table? What kind of juices did you pull out of this already established story? And like, what did you bring to the table? I can't point to anything and say like, he made that good, or he really got that out of it. I don't see any of that.
I mean,
There's
this is
only a
very,
handful of things. Yeah.
this is a very minor thing, but something I thought that was really effective regarding the monster was the sound design, the way its voice sort of like morphed into like from one sound, like one voice to the other, and it like almost at times like had a hard time talking, like when it was in between voices, like I couldn't quite get the words out. I thought that was a really cool effect.
Again,
I
that kind
agree.
of just reminded me of Annihilation.
The thing, I mean, that's one of those things where I'm just like, it is similar to Annihilation. They did similar things.
Everything
People
is
like
gonna
that.
be somewhat similar.
Right.
That's not necessarily. I
man.
can't. I like when we say like, oh, I'm praising the Babadook for what it did. Like, okay, well, what did the Babadook rip off?
Changeling, a bunch of movies. Like that's the thing. It's like this. The thing that makes Babadook work really well is the execution of an idea.
Yeah.
And that's what's lacking here. Ultimately, that's what it's going to come down to for me. Is like I think that this movie is derivative, but does not elevate it does not exceed the sum of its parts, and the parts that we see are not the best version of those parts either.
Yeah.
So it suffers on all levels because of that. If it had a like pinnacle moment, I didn't even really particularly care for like the lights flash or anything like that. I've seen like we could point out like the inferences, the references or the homages or whatever you want to call them, all day long, and some of them I think still work better than others. I think that the vocal thing of the monster works pretty well. I know that I've seen it in Annihilation. I thought about Annihilation, but I thought it was cool in Annihilation. I thought it was cool here. I thought it was accomplished well. That's what's lacking from all those other instances. And that's why I kind of am split between the 2 points you guys are arguing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess the short story itself is really just it's like 9 or 10 pages. I haven't read it, but it is the scene where David S. Malchin walks into the office and
It's more from a therapist's office, right? Yeah.
And he's having a conversation about his kids dying, and that's like all the short story is. And I guess Beck and Woods took that and fleshed out the story that we got in this movie, which is obviously a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But I think the source material like really clearly shines through in that one scene in this movie where they're sitting down in the therapist's office. Dust Malchin.
That writing is better.
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, they had Stephen King to pull from
Yeah,
there.
like
Um,
it just like that is more
sticks out.
engaging writing. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
dialogue. I mean, particularly.
And the acting, I thought Del Smolchin
Yeah.
killed that segment. Like he seems really fucking unhinged, which he was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that he actually hung himself, or that are we supposed to believe the creature did that to him?
Yeah, I think so. I like
Yeah.
the thing, if they
well,
didn't
that's- yeah.
if they killed a physical creature, I don't think that was like if the movie didn't leave room for ambiguity for that by the end of things. If it had, I think that scene taken in a vacuum, you could have argued that, but it's not in a vacuum. It's in the rest of the movie where they.
That's the
that shit.
I thought you could totally argue it either way, because it seems like the creature tries to suck the essence out of people or something, and it doesn't. I mean, maybe it hangs people. I don't know, but like he could have very easily just hung himself too.
He also ripped a woman in half.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like the logic of this, they don't stay consistent with it. So
Yeah.
another instance is like the fucking dude, the candle budget on this film was like
That's
off the
out of
goddamn
control,
chain.
man. Yeah.
But like okay, so the whole woman who does the info dump, and it's like, oh god, here we go, and she's in the house, and just that's one of those things where I want something to look cool, and I'm gonna have all these candles in the hallway, and it just doesn't make any kind of internal logical sense, because like the monster moves in and just puts the flames out and then later, so it bugged me to shit that you're gonna have this person who has this house set up rigged with fucking trigger bullets, and they have floodlights and shit like that, and they're gonna rely on candles in their house, and we see that, okay, maybe they didn't know the monster could put the candles out, but then the whole crutch of the film, like the whole pinnacle of the film, comes down to like a single flame, and like like the monster just put out 100 billion candles in the hallway. Like, why is that a threat to the monster? So when you're talking about, okay, we see consistently this monster just killing people, and then it's like, okay, well then why would a guy hang himself in the closet, but then hint that the monster is there? It's like the monster would just kill him, but they gotta make it seem ambiguous. That seems just like a fault to me. It's come off, it's like, ooh, I'm not sure about it. It comes off as just like an internal logical fault.
I think that's a fair interpretation. For me, it just seemed like the minute that I saw the face of this thing and knew that it was like, I don't know, it's a physical thing. Like in canon, it is a physical thing that attacks people no matter where they are necessarily, and will kill them if they're in the dark. This guy is at their house or whatever. The question I would ask is, why did he end up there? That's fine to ask, and that's why it makes it like some sense, like, oh, maybe he did just kill himself. But why do that there? He's still got a wife at home. He's still like, he's grieving, sure, but like, I don't know, man. Why even go to a therapist? Like, why do any of that?
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense to me unless he's being pursued by this thing that's been pursuing him and his family. And we're shown that that's what it does the whole fucking movie. So I don't see any reason to think it's
this short story. I assume was like far more metaphorical, and like him dying in the closet is how it ends, because it's up to you to figure out. Oh, I wonder if
like that, like ambiguity about whether or not he actually killed his kids. Now that's that's fucking interesting. Like,
exactly. That's where I was kind of like hoping, that we would get some more stuff like that, because also too, if you take that internal logic, it's and we got to this a little bit with like A Quiet Place and stuff like that. So maybe that's just these writers like problems, but this house is rigged with cameras and lights. Even if you feel I have to go visit a therapist, and we see he's careful in the house, like, could you please close this closet door? Why wouldn't you go to Walmart and buy the most powerful fucking flashlight that exists always? Like the biggest mag light. It can't live in the light, and you're going to rely on a lighter. It's just, buy 100 mag lights. Like, I just don't understand. Like,
I love that. That's the ultimate source.
it's
The
just
biggest,
like,
baddest
I don't know,
light
you're
there
right though.
is.
There's
No,
a
I mean,
million
but the
ways to light a
girl-
room.
she survived by wrapping herself in Christmas lights. Now, I will say that was like a cool element and visual. But if you can survive by wrapping yourself in Christmas lights, why
Blinking
wouldn't you
Christmas lights, yeah.
always just? I would be double fisting mag lights always. Like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. That's. I mean, yeah. I don't know, man.
Could you please
Movies have
close
done
the
dumber
closet
things.
door? It's
Like,
like
horror movies have done dumber things than this. Like, that's the thing. Is like,
Sure.
but because it's in the confines of a film that is clearly trying to do more,
yeah.
it makes it worse. That's how I felt about A Quiet Place to a certain extent. But at least that had a few things to hang its hat on, which I pointed out earlier. And I think that's what's missing here. Is like, if this had even like a really meaty character role for the lead,
Meaty.
great. Then it would be like 25% better. You know what I mean? If it gave something for the actor to really cut their chops on, that could have, like, they had that opportunity. Again, like, it's all about opportunity squandered.
I feel like this movie is one, like, just one really good element away from being like a little bit better than mediocre. You know, like, if it just had, if one thing was elevated, it could be.
What you
Go
got?
ahead and kind of land the plane. Yeah, I think
we got hand motions now.
We're just saying the same shit over and over. Juice, why don't you kick us off? Out of 5, how do you feel about the Boogeyman?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a movie I'm gonna quickly forget and never visit again. It's not the most like offensive or like it's not terrible. It's not terrible. If like somebody threw this on in the background, I wouldn't like groan or anything. It's just it really feels like everything is kind of stolen or cribbed off of. And there, like I was just saying, there's not one element that I feel is elevated. There's a couple things that are cool or okay within themselves. But again, if I just take 5 seconds to consider that one element, I think about 5 to 10 other films that I'd rather be watching that could still fit in this same realm. And so when that happens every single time, like, I could say like, yeah, I did think that the voice was like cool, or even a cool idea, or constructing this monster. I wasn't like, it didn't really work for me, but like the general idea of it was fine to me, and like worked in, like you said, I like the hand things or whatever. But again, it's just like, but there's not one element to this film that makes me think like I need to watch The Boogeyman, or somebody should watch The Boogeyman. I'm going to recommend a bunch of other films every time. I don't think the acting was elevated. You know, the story, again, a monster who feeds off your fear. I mean, just go watch it. I know that's Stephen King, but I mean, you gotta like come down to it. It's like, just go watch it. It's infinitely better. So I just don't think that this movie elevates to anything. It's like generic to its core, and it pulls some things off, but yeah, I don't know. I just don't think this is anything special by any means. I'll give it a 2.25. I'm just kind of like pissed off at how generic it is that I don't even want to give it a 2.5.
Oh.
All right. 2.25.
Bob, out of 5, what you gonna give The Boogeyman?
I think this movie operates perfectly fine as just like a 90-minute PG-13 horror movie. It's not reinventing the wheel by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it's doing anything that's like too awful or too shitty or too dumb. Like, it doesn't look too bad. The acting isn't awful. Like, it's all passing. It's totally passing in my mind. And I could see like some kids strolling into the theater and getting a kick out of it, which I think is overall a positive. I think that's a good thing. We need PG-13 horror movies. Are there better ones? Absolutely, for sure. Are teens gonna like seek those out? Do they even know they exist? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
They should listen to us.
Yeah, let your teens listen to Straight Chilling if you got them. Yeah, I think the creature design was pretty cool. I specifically like the sound design with its voice and like the arms coming out of its mouth. David Dastmalchian, I think, really it kind of stands out in that one scene he's in. It's kind of a bummer we don't get more of him. The rest of the acting is solid, not amazing, not terrible. The play with the light, I thought was pretty cool with the video game flashes, the Christmas lights, the little moon that the girl holds, and then like flashing cube. There's like some. It's not just a light switch going on and off, which it could have been as easy as that, or like a breaker tripping every fucking scene. Like, at least they put a little thought into it, you know.
Sure.
I don't know. The pace of it felt like sort of slow and methodical in a good way. It didn't feel like super rushed or frantic. The kid acting was pretty good, and I know it's not like it's very like basic. It's very like what you see is what you get, but I don't necessarily hate that because it's just a Boogeyman movie. I don't want it to be like crazy layered or at least it doesn't need to be. I don't think. It's fine. I'm gonna give it a 2.5, kind of right down the middle. Ray and Deezy, how do you feel?
Well, first, I totally disagree. If you're going to make a movie called The Boogeyman, I definitely want it to be more than what it sounds like. Please and thank you. Because what it sounds like is very rote and boring, and that is ultimately what we got. And it seems like
But Gannis, they call it The Boogeyman. Dude, then when she delivered that line, it's just like...
The Gannis nickname, that's a throwback.
Yeah, no, that's a throwback.
Yeah, that is a throwback. I wrote down a few notes. Most of them are things I've said before, but just want to kind of like let's put this in the books. First of all, I want to point out that I watched this with Beck, and Beck turned to me at the end of the movie and said, "I don't remember the last time I've been that bored in a movie." So that kind of speaks for itself. I didn't think that the CG was good. I did think that the movie overall had a clean look. It looked produced well enough. The acting, like Bob said, was capable, but was not optimized to the actor's talents, I don't think. I think it's a reasonably okay horror for a new entry into the horror world to jump into. Somebody young, somebody PG-13 accessible, you know, or a little bit younger even. I just think that, I don't know, I would definitely watch another one of this guy's movies to see if there's growth, because again, I feel like it's a total different ball game when you have this kind of budget, when you're not making found footage. I don't like, there's at least one movie he's made that I absolutely loathe, and this does not rise to that at all. And I would see some, like, I think that it's just maybe some version of cutting teeth. It's not the most promising outing, but I'd give it another shot because I did like his first movie. Let's see what else. The internal logic of this movie doesn't hold. The metaphor doesn't hold. It doesn't give you much to think about after the curtains raise. There's nothing for me to really point to except mediocrity. And I remember reading some article or some opinion or something like that, where somebody said like the worst thing that a movie can be is mediocre, and it's movies like this that make that seem true sometimes. I'm not sure I agree with that really, but like,
well, we did all see Dashcam, and I think we agree that's worse.
Yeah, well, Dashcam is a fucking anomaly.
Yeah, I mean it's worse. Yeah, but I agree with Rand. There's a problem with like being like on purpose mediocre.
Yeah, sure, I agree with that, but it's not the worst.
Well, it's not the
continue.
worst.
Sorry, continue.
It's not the worst movie by this director or that I've ever seen or anything like that. But it's the lack of memorability is a huge factor. I think this is not going to stand the test of time is ultimately the case. And I don't think it necessarily has to, but it sure would be nice if the movie Boogeyman provided more than something forgettable. Like the title doesn't have to be as forgettable as its title. It can be more, and it just wasn't. So I'm going to agree with Justin. I'm going to give it a 2.25. I don't think it really rises to, I think that I'm a little upset with how the mediocrity really made it feel like it wasn't worth watching. You know, it really felt like it wasn't ultimately worth the squeeze. And, you know, it's worth the squeeze from a craft perspective for the directors, for the actors, all that stuff. It's worth trying it out. And I think that they probably learned a lot doing it. But I don't necessarily want to watch every exercise that a director puts together.
Especially when you get a June theater release for a horror movie, like you need to bring something. This is like streaming at best. Like, you know, if this came on Netflix or Shudder, then I'd be like, yeah, okay, it feels like that kind of movie.
So a little bit of trivia ahead of time here. It was originally supposed to be a Hulu streamer,
Okay.
And then I guess last December they did some test screenings, and it just tested really, really well. So they decided to push it forward to theaters.
You know who was watching those screeners?
I don't know.
I think it's I don't know. I think I could see I don't know. I think it definitely is more of the quality of a Hulu original film. It's probably would be one of the better ones, but for a theatrical release, I agree. It doesn't quite rise to that level. It's somewhere in the between there.
Actually, Hulu wasn't Hulu kicking out a lot of bangers last year.
Hulu has done great ones.
I was gonna say
ones that should have been in theaters. Fresh
they should have.
Like,
that's what I was gonna say. They should swap this for Fresh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our aggregate is gonna be a 2.3. For the Boogeyman, let's jump into our Rotten Tomatoes segment and see what the critics and users think.
Let's do it. All right. All right. If I remember right, we're coming off a hot streak for Juice last episode. Am I right? Was that right?
No, I don't remember. Probably.
Okay.
Yes. I'm
Probably
always
not.
killing it. I'm always
Probably not.
Yes. For sure. Definitely.
No. Juice was
Well, nowhere to go but down.
wins
All right.
last week.
There are one oh, I'm sorry. I should explain the segment as I usually do. This is the Rotten Tomatoes segment in which I'm going to have these gentlemen guess within the best of their abilities what the aggregate positive score is on RottenTomatoes.com. That's both for critics and users. We're going to start, as we always do, with the critics. There are 154 critic reviews accounted for here, so a little over 150. I'm going to start with Bob. Bob, out of those 154 reviews, what percentage do you think were positive receptions?
Ooh, this is I don't know. I'm just gonna I'll stick kind of close to where we're at, and just take a 50.
50. All right, 50. Juice, how about you?
Yeah, I agree, especially when you consider like how it's ranked of where like because this movie could easily be a rotten scoring, it could easily be a positive scoring. When you're averaging those out, it's like I feel like it could fall. This movie though is like pretty inoffensive, and so I think it'll go. Then there's no kind of like controversial name necessary, even though this guy made a bad movie. It's not like Rob Zombie, there's Eli Roth. There's no like name attachment to it where anybody would be like they should have done better or like we're really harsh on them. So I'll say like 56.
6. All right. Well, the correct answer would have been 62%. Juice is going to take this one. 62%. That is just a D minus. And I think that's obviously for my taste a little high, but I can understand. Like, I think probably that people were more graceful to this movie because I don't know, I'm more graceful to it when I think of it as a teen horror movie and not a elevated horror movie. Ugh.
Gross.
Yeah,
let's move on to our audience.
I think when critics think about it, they say that's a hell yeah.
I don't think they say that.
No,
I don't think that. I can't see Ebert saying that.
Not yet. We're 22 5-star ratings away, and then they will say that. Then they will.
You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong?
What Bob is trying to say is go rate us so that we can go give us a 5-star rating so that on iTunes so that we can then hop on Rotten Tomatoes and be official critics on Rotten Tomatoes.
I am the queen.
That's what Bob's saying. That's our next big goal.
Thanks for
taking
the
over
interpretation,
Rotten Tomatoes.
Let's start off with our audience score now. There are over 500 verified ratings for this film. So this is kind of a large segment of users, verified users, in accounting here. We're going to start with Juice this time. Juice, where do you think that those audience members are going to hit this movie at? Where are they going to peg it?
I don't know. I guess it's going to be kind of similar. Yeah. I don't know. I'll say the same thing. 56.
56. All right. Bob, how about you?
How many were there again?
There were over 5,000 or 500 rather.
500.
Yeah.
56. Damn. how many teenagers saw this?
All of them.
I'll take a 58.
All right. Well, gentlemen, this one belongs to Bob. 67% is the correct answer. So not a very strong difference here. 5% of grace from the audience. So I don't know what to take from that, but
Well,
the
what you
audience
take from that is a hell yeet.
I'll
I
take
don't
a hell
that.
yeet.
Oh god damn it, hell skeet. Take a hell skeet. Fuck,
I'll take the hell yeet, baby.
fuck you.
Jesus Christ.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
I'll take it to the bank, Bob.
You.
Well, we're going to read some negative reviews and hope to God there's some funny ones. I've been kind of like side eyeballing this, and there haven't been too many funny ones, just very apt negative reviews. I'm just going to read one at random. Here we go. While the film is moderately unsettling, it mostly indulges in genre tropes rather than subverting them, especially once its monster literally comes out of the bedroom closet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's not funny. That's just apt. I don't know.
Yeah.
The Boogeyman is largely forgettable. Paint-by-numbers horror flick that attempts to exploit the Stephen King name, but it's executed in a lackluster fashion. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
our opinions belong right next to these.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. We're not gonna. Nobody's being too harsh on this. No, it doesn't rise to the level of being funny. I don't think
There's
so.
nothing to really like pull on to like
No.
elevate the humor.
Like
No.
if the if the acting in this movie wasn't as good as it is, I think that people would be like, I think it would drop like 10%. Like
Yeah.
really do.
I mean, it would
the
be
acting is
awful.
capable enough to keep people like if
That's the thing.
nobody does an
Everything
embarrassing
is
job.
just good enough
Just
to keep
good
it
enough.
like
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a passing D-.
It's
And
like
that's what we got here.
floating. It's like you're not okay. You're not in a good position. You're probably gonna die, but for now, you're just kind of staying upright.
You know, if this movie was worse, it'd be worse.
You know. Yes. It'd be
Yeah.
significantly worse.
And if it
Yeah.
was
You know,
better, it'd be
I think
better.
what
It'd
we're
be
all trying to
better.
say is
We are very impressed.
I'm not saying that.
all right.
Hey, yeah, it's totally time for trivia.
It's totally time for trivia.
Bob, how's the trivia on this one?
I got a few points here.
All right.
So yeah, like I mentioned last December, they did some test screenings. They went really well. Rob Savage, the director, went on to say this. He said, when the movie tested so well, we decided it was time to get Stephen King's input. So we rented out his favorite cinema in Maine. He knows what he doesn't like. And if we fucked up his story, he would have told us. But he sent a lovely, almost essay about how much he enjoyed the movie. And the next day I wake up and there's an email in my inbox from Stephen King. And he still said nice things about the movie. He's still thinking about the movie. And then probably the nicest thing of all that he said is they'd be fucking stupid to release this on streaming and not in cinemas, which they ultimately decided to do.
Dude, Stephen
King's a real nice guy.
He wanted
And-
that check, baby.
Well, probably. And this movie, so I think I got it correct. I think it said the budget was 20 million. It was 35 million, and it
Okay.
grossed about 63 million so far. So it seems like
All
it's
right.
paid off.
Yeah, I thought it was bigger than 20, but
That's-
yes. See, that's the kind of irritating thing too. Is like
That's impressive.
that's the
Considering
thing
Spider-Verse
is-
came out this week.
yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
successful, but it's irritating that it's like that's the bar for like, okay, let's just do more of that. It's like
Yeah. But also, just in general, though, like horror makes money, no matter what kind of horror. Like it just is a pretty safe bet. So like, if there's a couple that come out that are mediocre or whatever, it's fine. Like I'm not gonna get too upset about it. I don't know.
It's bound to
Um,
happen, but it isn't ideal for people who are
Yeah.
regularly seeing new ones and
We're
having to
gonna
face the
get
fallout of all
another
these.
shitty Scream sequel. Like it's gonna happen. Like
well,
you know,
yeah, but it
there's
looks like-
worse shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a few more points though. the Boogeyman it's an adaptation of his Stephen King short. It was originally featured in a March 1973 issue of Cavalier magazine, and then later in his collection of short stories called Night Shift. Apparently, when they were doing those test screenings, some of the scenes were so intense they had to actually change them. They had to recut them because the audience screamed so loud at certain points that there was important dialogue that happened right after that was being covered up by their screams, so you couldn't hear what was being said. Which I don't know if I believe that, but I
don't believe that.
That's what the trivia.
Yeah, because literally every scare in here is mostly just a jump scare.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah,
dude.
Oh
man.
There was a very brief callback to Host, which was the 50-minute movie that we were talking about. Rob Savage directed. It's on Shudder. There's a YouTube video that pops up on how to contact the dead. Sadie's watching, and the actress in that YouTube video that she's watching is from Host.
Oh.
Okay.
And the final bit I have is Lester
oh, that's
Billings.
right. I do. Okay, yeah.
Lester Billings' address in this movie is shown to be 217 Oak Drive, which is apparently a nod to Room 217 from The Shining. There you
go. Okay.
Yeah.
Tried and true homage. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think Stephen King's probably just a real nice guy who I don't think I've heard him criticize a movie based on his stuff.
Yeah,
he criticized The Shining. So.
That's the only one
That's
that
about
I
it,
know.
right? Yeah.
So I don't know how much I would judge that. Yeah.
He praises the miniseries of The Shining, which is better than you might think, but it's not the Kubrick movie. Anyway, it's totally time to talk about the fucking Cooter of the Week, right?
Oh, what a lead in. All right.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the Week.
Juice, what is a cooter? Why do we hunt them?
Oh, Cooter's a character type in a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a cooter. We want the cooter with the most points. 5 points of cooterdom are sexual deviancy, manipulation, smug arrogance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, is there a cooter in the Boogeyman?
I think we got some options we could mull through.
There's that one chick.
I was gonna say
wife.
Oh, sorry.
Is what I was thinking, but
no. I was gonna go with the high school girl.
Yeah, she is awful.
She's terrible. I don't know if she hits enough points, but we should go through the list and find out, I think. So smug arrogance.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
What a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Like to a point where it feels like one of the things that's like an undercurrent of cooters is people that you want bad things to happen to because they are that terrible or annoying.
Yeah.
And
like
it's both for this girl.
I was hoping she got.
Yeah.
I just thought she could have done with more than an open hand slap, personally.
Yeah.
I think
I would say
what's her name?
Patheticness, because bullying just in general was fucking pathetic.
It is, but especially like
someone whose mom is dead.
What's her problem?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's the death of a parent figure. Maybe that had something to do with her being a little bit awkward. You know, how dare she be a little awkward? Sexual deviancy. We have no inclination to.
Her attire is teenage girl wear.
Manipulation.
Doesn't she manipulate her into the closet?
I think they just.
She kind of tricks her in there. Yeah.
Does she?
She does try to manipulate her friend. She's like, "We're not hanging out with her anymore."
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty low level.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I think there's a low level of that that's more implied than shown.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to say low lying cooter
light,
cooter in waiting.
Who's the other guy, Bob? I mean,
Dallas Mulchin's wife. It was the one that came to my mind. She definitely manipulates Sadie coming over to use her as bait, which she very well could have died. She ended up not dying. I would say her attire, because like she looks
a little gunked up.
She looks like she's not really taking care of herself, you know.
A little gunked up, maybe.
Needs to double fist those mag lights. Take a shower real quick.
I don't know.
Dude.
I have a hard time holding too much of this against her, considering her situation, like
Her
patheticness.
family is dead.
Like her whole family's dead. Her husband supposedly killed himself. Her some infant children
Yeah.
all fucking died horribly at the hands of this thing that now hunts her. I don't know that I really blame her for being a little fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. She's not gonna get the sexual deviance.
No.
Patheticness.
I mean, she's doing her best, I guess. Considering
that's the thing is,
situation.
I would,
not buying mag lights.
I would feel really bad saying that she's pathetic considering
That's
the
fair.
circumstances.
I mean, that's totally fair. That's totally fair.
She's living in a pathetic way in a
Walk it
vacuum, but
off.
considering the context of just walk it off. That's the way.
Oh God.
Get a job.
Okay. Well, I mean, she almost had a teenage girl murdered by a creature.
That's
but
the
we'll
worst thing
give
she
her
does.
a pass.
Yeah, manipulation, I think, is definitely her
Yeah.
strongest.
And then she got ripped
For
in
sure.
half. So I think
Yeah.
She
that's
got
about
it.
as
Karma cola.
Yeah.
I think that's as much karma as any one person can experience.
And
in such a
her
short
candle
time.
budget was on fleek, so I guess she was balling. She had to
Yeah,
have
she
been.
can buy a shit
Oh,
ton
yeah.
of candles, just not Magdalene.
Can't buy Magnum.
That's the shit.
She had
Um,
$10,000 worth of candles in that house.
And
couldn't
she's
spend
like burning the
$30
torch. She's like, yeah, let
flashlights.
me like relight these things. Like, what?
Dude.
That's so inefficient.
Let's maybe we
Alright.
should talk about the Booger Man real quick.
The Booger Man. He's
Mm,
manipulative.
Yeah.
Absolutely manipulative,
For
using
sure.
voices, learning voices,
Yeah.
standing in I don't know.
How dare you learn?
Pathetic.
We'll teach you.
Pathetic, I would say so. The method of hunting
So
is pretty pathetic, I
he's
think.
killing
Preys on the
infants
weak.
and shit.
Yeah, I know, like, yeah, he's yeah. And he's
I mean,
he's
it's
like
just a
a hunter
creature,
who
you
goes
know?
out and shoots like fucking Bambi. Like, oh, you're a real strong guy. Good for you, dickhead. You got
Randy's got a personal
what?
vindictive against the old Booger Man.
Oh shit.
I just like the correlation I see. If he's hunting infants, like
Yeah.
shoot fish in a barrel,
Sure,
you fucking
yeah.
coward. Why not?
Yeah.
His attire, you guys didn't like how it looked, really.
I didn't like the way it was
Well,
executed.
He's
I
not
don't.
wearing anything.
I think that like in my in a nightmare I had where with that thing, I would be kind of scared of it. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's a spooky looking thing. It's just kind of like
So,
overdone. I don't think
it's-
that's. I think that's canonically not the problem.
It's
not a problem with the
naked,
parody.
so we're gonna give it sexual deviance.
Okay,
Whoa.
sure.
It's got those little hands.
gonorrhea.
Oh god,
Diddling
little
with
hand-
those little hands.
just mouthful of hands.
Dude, the
That's-
mouth. He's got a mouthful of hand. Yes, that's just trying to pull little strands of soul out of
Just-
your face.
It's a
That
finger in
reminds
his
me,
own
by the way,
mouth.
very much of what is that fucking movie with the steam? Fucking
Oh,
Shining
Stephen
2.
King, the
yeah.
fucking,
Dr. Sleep. Dr.
Dr.
Sleep.
Oh yeah.
This is your boy
With the
Dr. Sleep coming
steam.
at you
I'm
late
gonna
show.
Suck some steam out your
Out
mouth.
of your soul.
Out of your mouth.
Damn, it's getting
Anyway.
steamy in here. Ooh.
Ugh.
I don't know. I
I don't
think,
know. Let's just say the teenage girl, I guess. I don't know.
let's just say a teenage girl. I think that's
Yeah.
the most coherent points we've made. So why not?
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
we did it.
All
we
right.
got it.
We
We
did
got it.
Booger Man gets
uh,
off on a technicality.
Yeah. He's probably in there too. I don't know. Lock him up. It's fine. Whatever. We got two. We'll call it two. Let's skip what we've been watching. We got some voicemails we got to get to. Let's get into our hotline streams.
Hotline scream.
If you are listening and would like to call in and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got 3 voicemails this week. First up, we are going to hear from the librarian. Let's hear what she's got to say.
What up? It's your boy, the librarian. Hi, guys. What was my nightmare as a child? Very classic nightmare. Freddy Krueger. Nightmare on Elm Street, more like nightmare in my brain. I had a phase as a kid around ages 6 through 8 where I would wake up randomly at 2, 3 a.m. and I would watch TV very quietly so I wouldn't wake up my parents. However, at 2, 3 a.m., all I remember being on was sex toy ads that I did not understand and those top 100 horror movie moments because I remember that's how I got introduced to horror. And for some reason, Freddy Krueger was the one that fucked me up the most. I vividly remember seeing the intro to Nightmare on Elm Street on there and freaking out because I couldn't see him. How the fuck am I supposed to fight what I can't see? But I also remember I didn't want to tell my parents because I was scared they'd be more mad at me for watching TV at 3 a.m. Now I'm a massive fan of the franchise and a staunch Nightmare on Elm Street 2 defender, so it all worked out in the end. I hope The Boogeyman's a good movie because I really like the idea of King's short stories being adapted because I sometimes prefer those over his long novels because the man cannot often land the plane when it comes to his endings. One short story of it I'd love to see adapted eventually is I Am the Doorway from Night Shift. Lots of weird body horror stuff. Could be fun. All right, have a good one. Bye.
Lots of energy.
Librarian
I love it.
into the
Hopped up.
cocaine.
Hopped up on books. All them words. Yeah, we did. We posed a couple questions. I think. Anyway, we're asking people what they were scared of when they were kids or whatever, nightmares and shit. Freddy Krueger. I didn't really ever have any like Freddy Krueger nightmares, but I didn't watch that shit as a kid
neither.
either.
Yeah, that was early teens for me, so it didn't really take in that way.
Yeah.
Spooky.
That is you had an excellent welcome to prime time bitch moment. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Watching Nightmare late at night when you're not supposed to, real quiet.
Yeah.
That's some prime time dream fodder for sure. Nightmare fodder.
Yeah, that'll fuck you up as a kid, man. We need to review more Freddy movies. I'd like to talk about two. I really would like to review Freddy's Dead, which is definitely not like a good movie, but it's super fucking fun. It's
we've
wild.
only done a couple, and it's been a
Yeah.
while.
1 and 3, I think, are the only two.
Two back in the day.
Did we back in the day?
I don't remember that.
I thought it was part of the OG.
Maybe we did. I don't know.
But
I forget these all the time.
Yeah, I could be wrong. We could have just watched it one night. I thought we did. I've seen it with y'all.
I want to say we didn't, but I could be wrong. It's hard to remember the 425 movies we've reviewed at this point.
Jesus.
But maybe we'll get back to that franchise and pick up a couple more. Thanks for calling, Librarian. Hope your summertime reading is going splendidly. Next up, we're going to hear from Chris. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Hey, Straight Trailing crew, this is Chris in Louisiana. Was excited to see the new episode being Starship Troopers. I haven't revisited that movie since it came out in theaters, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. I haven't finished the episode yet, but Paul Verhoeven, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but I find him fascinating. I think that for being someone from Europe, I think he's from Europe, maybe Denmark or Finland or something, Swedish. Anyways, I think that he gets America in a lot of ways that a lot of people don't see, but rings true. I think RoboCop comes to mind as being one of my favorites, and kind of in that same kind of vein as Starship Troopers, and then with Total Recall. I know Starship Troopers was kind of an international, global thing, but it just felt really American. And RoboCop, it's commentary on corporations and stuff. It was spot on. But anyways, the reason I wanted to call and pose a question for you guys, and you guys kind of talked about it a little bit when you were talking about your theatrical experiences with Starship Troopers. So when that movie came out, I think I was about 12, and my mom would take me to the movies a lot, but the ones that she didn't want to see, if they were R-rated, she would buy me and my friends tickets and then just drop us off. We were obviously underage. Trying to see Starship Troopers and it being rated R, she did that and she left, and the ticket person wouldn't let us in. And I remember getting into a vivid argument. I remember vividly getting into an argument with the ticket person about how this movie was like the ad campaign was targeted at kids, our age, and it's ridiculous that they wouldn't let us in. Meanwhile, my mom was buying me tickets and letting me watch From Dusk Till Dawn and Halloween 6. I did the same thing happened with Halloween 6. But anyways, the question I had for you guys was, what was the first horror movie that you guys remember seeing theatrically? Mine, my stepdad took me to go see, and it was Army of Darkness, and I think I was maybe 7 or 8. And the funny thing was that I had just seen Evil Dead for the first time on the Sci-Fi Network like the weekend before, but I think my time's about to run out. I don't want to get cut off. Thanks for the show. I'm really enjoying it. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, Chris.
Good question.
I'm going to need a second to think about that, so somebody else start.
Yeah.
Well, so I was looking at the date. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I was gonna say I had to like really think about it too. I had to like do some research and like I was just trying to remember some early shit that I watched as a kid. I think Blade is the first one I saw in theaters, which I know is like action, horror, adventure, superhero, whatever you want to. It's like a blend. But that came out August of 1998. And every other movie that I could like find that came after that, I think was, or any horror movie that I saw before that, I think was rented that I got from like Blockbuster. So I'm gonna go with Blade as my answer.
Okay. If we were going by movies, so that just sparked something in my mind. Movies that we've covered on this cast, which doesn't necessarily fit, then it would be like Godzilla 98. But actual horror, I had to look at the dates. Because the two that stick out in my mind of like coming into like adolescence and going to watch horror films and stuff like that were The Ring and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. And I looked at it. It looks like The Ring came out first. That was 2002. And then the remake of Texas Chainsaw was 2003. So I think The Ring is the first like horror movie where I went in and it like scared me. So yeah, I think The Ring.
All right. Well, the furthest back I can remember, geez, I'm trying to remember what year this came out. No, I had to have seen something in theaters before this, but the earliest thing that's coming to mind anyway off the bat is Signs. Like that definitely happened. I'd seen a lot of horror movies at home. Like I think the first horror movie I ever saw was either Puppet Master or Cujo or Leprechaun. It was one of those three, and it was on my TV at home. But like theatrical, that's really throwing me. I think Signs is just the earliest one I can think of.
Shit, that's a good call. Maybe. I mean, I think I saw Sixth Sense in theaters, and that was 1999.
Yeah,
so I guess that would count more. Maybe Sixth Sense. Yeah, okay, Sixth Sense then.
That's a good one.
Jumping up, yeah.
I remember watching the freaking blood rain down in that opening scene in Blade. Fucked me up, man. And that like big giant vampire that like can't move and then they like shine the flashlight on him. Burn him, dude. That shit fucked me up.
Damn, I had like just been born. I wasn't very old when Sixth Sense came out. I mean, I had
Your parents started you very young.
I had to be like 1 or 2. Yeah, something like that.
I wonder, I might have seen The Haunting in theaters. I don't know. That's possible. Like the
Did
remake,
that come out, Randy?
That was 99.
Is that
I'm just
with
looking
Owen
through
Wilson,
lists of
right?
movies now. Yeah.
I feel like I saw
And
that
Jeffrey
one
Rush
on
and
like
stuff.
Cinemax or something.
Yeah.
Or
It's
like
possible that I saw
Channel
it there too. I'm not
14.
gonna lie. I don't remember I don't have a vivid memory of my first. I have a very vivid memory of seeing Signs, so that's what I'm gonna go with.
I do. Yeah, I do remember seeing Sixth Sense, so I think I'll go with that one.
Right on.
Cool.
Solid question. Yeah. Thanks for calling, Chris. Appreciate it. We got one more voicemail, and it's going to be from Jack. Let's hear what he's got to say.
Straight Showing Podcast. This is Jack calling in again on my break at work. Let me tell you something. Florida Georgia Line fucking sucks. I was offended you guys would assume I'd listen to that band. That band is trash. I don't even really remember them because when they were famous, I was like 11. So anyway, calling in because your props was interesting. I remember when I was a little kid, I must have been about 5, 6. I have a sister that's 10 years older than me. So she was in her prime teenager trying to watch scary movie phase. And she was a scaredy cat. So she would always try to rope me into watching horror movies with her when I was really young and way too young for most of those movies. And one of them was The Blob. And she, got me into it by being like, oh, it's, from the 50s. It's really old. Everything's so corny. You won't even find it scary. And it wasn't the 50s Blob. It was the 88 Blob. And that shit freaked me the fuck out. I think I was a little trooper. I think I made it to the point when the main kid, Paul, gets like melted. Yeah, that freaked me out, and it probably gave me night terrors for a while. So I was afraid of the Blob for a while when I was really little because of the 88 Blob. And I love both those movies now. You guys should watch the 50s one if you never have, because it's actually, I like it a lot. And then after that, I lived through I grew up in the zombie era where like zombies were everywhere. So I remember zombies freaked me out for a while because getting eaten alive by a giant crowd of zombies was like just genuinely terrifying to me. And for some reason, they were everywhere when I was a little kid. I'm sure you guys remember how every video game, movie, TV show was just about zombies for like 7 years straight. It kind of got annoying. And especially when I was really little, I was pretty afraid of them. So it was really tedious to do anything. But other than that, yeah, I was not really afraid of too many things. And I'm calling in to ask a prompt because when Evil Dead came out a couple weeks ago, I kind of realized that almost every famous horror movie has been remade at this point. I think the only one is probably The Exorcist. I don't think we've gotten another Exorcist remake, but you got like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Poltergeist, Evil Dead in 2013, though it isn't really a remake, Halloween, and I'm sure there's like probably one other I'm missing. And I was wondering, I was like, where would you guys rank the remakes? Because we've had a remake of almost every really famous movie. I think even Psycho had a remake, maybe, and even Carrie had a remake. So what's your ranking of all of them? I don't really think any of them are high. I think the only one I really actually genuinely enjoy is probably the Friday the 13th one, and that's only because we haven't had a million of those. We had one, and we haven't seen it since. Nightmare on Elm Street, trash. The Texas Chainsaw.
And he's done.
My guy, that's easy. Evil Dead straight to the top.
Yeah.
See, I don't even consider that a remake, though. Like you said, like I don't know, that doesn't strike me as a true remake. It seems like just kind of an anthology or even in the same world
Reimagining.
somehow.
Yeah,
Like,
but I
know.
mean, it's still like the beats, the book, the cabin. I mean, it's other than having a
very
character
similar.
named Ash, it's a remake.
Yeah, I think it's
You
close
got
enough.
the rape
I'd consider
scene.
it.
You got, I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty much
Debatable, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, if I'm including that, then I agree with you. I would say I don't think it's wise for us to go through all of those listed. We're going to be here for a long time, and I don't want to put myself through the ringer. But I will say that, like, of the ones mentioned, the worst one, definitively for me, is the Psycho remake, which is I said earlier, I don't like having to pay full price for a movie that is ultimately a character or a director's study of making a movie. That's what that movie feels like. It's like when they say whoever it was, I can't remember, I think Hemingway rewrote Great Gatsby or something to see what it felt like to write a great novel. I'm probably getting the details of that way wrong, but it's like that's what it feels like. It feels like an exercise, but it went to fucking theaters and people paid to see it, and that's egregious. It is just a strict, hard remake of every moment of the original movie in color with Walkman in it.
With Walkman.
They say the word Walkman, and Vince Vaughn jerks off, and that's supposed to be a new movie somehow. Oof. I don't see it.
Yeah, I think Nightmare on Elm Street is probably the worst one of those mentioned for me. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I've not seen the Poltergeist remake, but I remember that movie being just fucking basically unwatchable. But
yeah, I actually haven't seen that one.
Yeah, Evil Dead is solid. I think the Texas Chainsaw remake is solid. I actually like the Friday the 13th remake. I think the Carrie remake is pretty decent, but like none of these are really touching the originals, so to speak. Halloween, Psycho, Nightmare on Elm Street, pretty fucking bad.
Yeah, so most of these I actually have not seen because of their reputation. I haven't seen the Carrie remake, the Poltergeist remake, the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, the Psycho remake. So half. Evil Dead's definitely at the top for me. Then I'd probably go Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Rob Zombie's Halloween, I guess, and then Friday the 13th. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably put
There-
Carrie above Halloween.
Well, I haven't seen it.
You haven't
Yeah,
seen it.
I
Yeah, I'm
probably
just
would
thinking
too,
about
based
it.
on reputation.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I've,
it's tough. They're all
And I-
mediocre at best.
And I think I kind of agree with Friday the 13th to some extent with you, Bob. But I think that movie's not good. But I also think that many of the Friday the 13th movies are also not good. I don't think it's
Yeah.
uniquely bad amongst those.
No, it's
Nah.
fine. One remake that came out in the 2000s that wasn't mentioned was the Dawn of the Dead remake. I quite like that one.
That one was good.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good one.
that's well up there for sure.
Yeah.
Like reputationally and for me personally.
Yeah.
for sure.
I think that fits more of a remake bill for me than Evil Dead does, so it would be my top spot, excluding that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I agree with that criteria. There's also like great remakes from the 80s and the 90s. The Thing, the Blob, the Fly.
Fly.
Night of the Living Dead, remade in the 80s, solid.
Yeah.
There's a decent amount of good remakes, but there's plenty of shit ones too, for sure.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
you get some like the new reimaginings, like Hellraiser was pretty good, but that's definitely not a remake. So it's just
That was fine.
Dude,
Flesh
there's a
and
lot
Loves,
of
Bob.
mediocrity in that stuff. Like like House on Haunted Hill,
Suspiria.
fucking
We forgot about
Suspiria.
Suspiria. Suspiria was a
Suspiria's-
good one.
Suspiria tops the bunch, yeah.
The first It was pretty good.
Yeah, that was good. I like that. Yeah, that's a good call.
13 Ghosts, baby.
Dude, 13 Ghosts remake is so much better than the original.
House of Wax, I mean, come on.
I mean, that wasn't bad, to be fair.
No, that's the thing is like everything's it's a very strong bell curve where it's very middle, and the thing that sucks the most about them is that they aren't the original film.
Yeah.
The House of Wax remake is like there's like wax figures in it. It's like not much else is similar.
Ooh, that Pet Cemetery was boo boo.
Yeah, not
That
great.
wasn't good.
Yeah.
There's a million of them out there, and honestly, like it skews more towards medium than anything else, which I guess makes sense. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
The bad ones are really fucking bad, and all of them shine a little bit less for their counterparts for the most part.
I definitely put Suspiria towards the top though. Like
I totally-
Evil, it would probably go Evil Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Suspiria, maybe even Suspiria above
I would
that.
put Suspiria second or maybe first. It depends on how I'm
Yeah.
feeling on the day.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think Dawn of the Dead might be my first.
Wow.
Evil Dead, Suspiria. Yeah.
Down with the sick.
Yeah. Solid
Fucking love
question.
that
That could be one. That could be a show in and of itself. Just talking
Yeah, it
about
really
remakes.
does need to be it's a big topic.
Yeah. Solid question. Thanks for calling in, Jack. Always good to hear from you. Joe Mangs, do you have any prompts you want to throw out for next week's show?
What's that movie, Bob? What we talking?
Next week, we're talking about the latest and greatest from your boy Ted Gagan. It is hitting Shudder this Friday. The movie is Brooklyn 45.
Whoa.
I can finally
check
talk
it
about
out.
this thing.
Yeah, I know.
God.
The embargo is done.
Slam your eyeballs into Brooklyn 45 exclusively on Shudder. Randy and I were fortunate enough to see this a few months ago and talk to Ted about it a little bit, and I think we both quite enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, but yeah.
Well,
So I guess
There's
the
a lot to
question for
discuss.
the next week then would be something about Brooklyn. Like, are you walking here?
Are you walking
the
here?
prompt, are you walking?
Here?
I don't know. Maybe listeners just have some crazy New York stories. New York City stories. You live there. Have you been there? Have you done anything crazy there? Call in, tell us about your New York
And
City
also, like,
stories.
Brooklyn 45, I think, is going to be one of those movies that, like, it's one of many horror movies that is going to come out, and like, it's good. People in the know are going to know, and people who don't aren't. And like, has there been a movie like that for you where you've been like an evangelist for? I don't know that I exactly fit that description, but a movie that most people don't know about, like the hidden gems, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
It's kind of an old
Yeah.
topic. Come back
Last year
to
I
haunt
kept
us.
touting You Won't Be Alone. I was like, anybody who was like,
Yeah.
what's one of the best movies this year? I'd be like, go watch this right now.
And you also talked about Locke a lot over the last several weeks.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So bring your haunted hidden gems to the table.
Whoa.
Ooh.
Actually, it's shouts outs to I mentioned it last week, but a movie that was 100% not on my radar in any capacity was that movie Caitlin just recommended to me, Byzantium, the vampire
Byzantium.
movie. Yeah, Byzantium.
Yeah.
And so that was like a complete hidden gem for me. So shouts outs to Caitlin on that one.
Nice.
Bring your
Plug it up.
Gems.
Yep.
Plug it up.
Oh, nothing much. Just a little incident involving the Boogeyman.
Damn,
Oh,
they got
yeah.
a lot of Boogeyman quotes.
Yeah. Check out Brooklyn 45. Get ready for next week's show. Call in, leave us your voicemails. Find us on all the socials. Just search Straight Chilling Podcast. You'll find us. That does it. Until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.
The Boogeyman.